Morning all. So, since things have settled down on the free agent front, at least right now, and yes, I'm jinxing it by saying it by doing a video on a different topic, so you're welcome. There'll be other things to talk about when this is done. All right, so Wendel Clark. I want to talk about the career of Wendel Clark, a folk hero among Toronto Maple Leaf fans, and I understand why. The interesting thing with Wendel Clark is coming up through juniors, it was said, and it was said a lot by scouts, he needs to be on the blue line. When the Toronto Maple Leafs take him first overall in 1985, and I've got articles on it on how, yeah, Toronto, they want to convert him to a forward, but he should stay on the blue line. That'd be the smart thing to do with Wendel Clark. Wendel Clark was a pure goal scorer. He also was one of the toughest players in the National Hockey League when he played. Now, if you are both a goal scorer and a guy who hits, can win some fights, you're going to become a folk hero pretty darn quickly. And for Wendel Clark, it does happen quickly. 66 games played his first year in the NHL. He scored 34 goals to go with 11 assists, 45 points. 227 penalty minutes. And a willingness to drop the gloves with whoever. He didn't care who it was. There was no intimidating Wendel Clark. In 10 playoff games, he recorded 5 goals, 1 assist for 6 points. He ends up finishing second in Calder voting. He was at the All-Star game that year, and he was on the All-Rookie team as well. So he became a star right out of the gate. And how did he follow that up? Because, sophomore jinx. Not for him. 80 games played the second year, 37 goals, 23 assists, 60 points, 271 penalty minutes. So, yeah, that's pretty good right there, right? So in the playoffs, 13 games, 6 goals, 5 assists, 11 points. The interesting thing is this is an era where the Leafs aren't very good. They aren't very good during the regular season. They're not getting winning seasons, but in the postseason, they're absolutely dangerous. And Wendel Clark's one of the reasons why Toronto is capable of pulling off these upsets in the playoffs. 87-88, injuries start to eat away at things for Wendel Clark this year. 28 games was what he managed that year. 12 goals, 11 assists, 23 points. Very effective when he's in the lineup. 80 penalty minutes in those 28 games. So it's not like in those 28 games he played, he was any less likely to drop the gloves or throw a big hit. He was still playing his game. 88-89, it actually gets worse for him. He only played 15 games that year. 7 goals, 4 assists, 11 points. And in the playoffs, or not in the playoffs, he also had 66 penalty minutes that year. So it's not going great for the Leafs or for Clark at this point. He did play more games in 89-90, played 38 games, 18 goals, 8 assists, 26 points. So again, he's scoring at about a 40-goal pace if he'd played every game. 116 penalty minutes as well. So again, when he's in the lineup, the tough guy's still there. He does play in the playoffs that year, 5 games, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points. But things get a little better for him in 90-91. Now, again, he's guaranteed to miss some time, and he does, but not nearly as much. 63 games played, 18 goals, 16 assists, 34 points, 152 penalty minutes. And you might consider that to be a little bit of a down year by his standard, but the 63 games played, that's pretty good. 91-92, games played dropped again. 43 games, 19 goals, 21 assists, 40 points. So the points per game, almost exactly 1 point per game. 123 penalty minutes overall. And that was the year he was named team captain for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you had to make him team captain. Wendel Clark is the emotional, figurative, and leader in all shapes and sizes for the Toronto Maple Leafs at this point. 92-93 would play 66 games that year, 17 goals, 22 assists, 39 points. 193 penalty minutes. So his goals per game dropped a little bit, but in the playoffs, that's when Wendel Clark was on, including fights in the playoffs when needed. 21 games, 10 goals, 10 assists, 20 points, and again, willing to drop the gloves. That was, of course, the year that the Toronto Maple Leafs get to the conference final, lost against the LA Kings. A real heartbreaker because if they'd gotten into that Stanley Cup final, it would have been Toronto and Montreal for the Cup. And I remember rooting for that myself and kind of being upset that the Kings took him out. So I can only imagine how Leaf fans felt that year. 93-94, his best season ever. 64 games, which is not as many games as the year before, but 46 goals, which was 10th overall, 30 assists, 76 points. So in terms of points per game, this is his best season, and it's not even close. 115 penalty minutes. In the playoffs, 18 games as Toronto gets back to the conference final. They lost to Vancouver that year. 9 goals, 7 assists for 16 points for Clark. So at a time where Doug Gilmour's becoming a massive star all across the NHL, at a time where Wendel Clark has never looked better, Toronto decides we could always trade Wendel Clark. And it's kind of a PR nightmare that they do this. Understandable, and honestly, they probably win the trade, but it's a PR disaster. June 28th, he's traded with a 1994 first, Sylvain Lefebvre, Landon Wilson in exchange for a 1994 first, Garth Butcher, Matt Sundin, and Todd Warner. So this is a deal that brings Matt Sundin to Toronto. Matt Sundin would go on to have absolutely ridiculous numbers for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but it cost them Wendel Clark. And I think that was kind of the feeling at the time. Great, they added Sundin, but why did it have to be Clark? And for Toronto, it was a matter of Clark's value was never going to be higher. So if you're going to make a move, you make that move then. It was a bold move. 94-95 with the Quebec Nordiques. It looked weird to see Clark in a Nordiques jersey. He played 37 games that year. That's a lockout shortened season. 12 goals, 18 assists, 30 points. So the effectiveness of Clark in Colorado, well, not Colorado yet, Quebec, not where you'd want it to be. 45 penalty minutes, so the penalty minutes dropped too. In the playoffs, 6 games, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. So the Quebec Nordiques, well, they move. They go to Colorado. Wendel Clark gets embroiled in a bit of a contract dispute between himself and Avs management. So in a 3-way deal, going to New Jersey was Steve Thomas. The rights to Wendel Clark is traded to the New York Islanders on October 3rd for Claude Lemieux. So we're well into training camp. We're getting ready for the start of the regular season. And Claude Lemieux is traded to the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for Wendel Clark. Claude Lemieux will play a major role for the Colorado Avalanche in winning a Stanley Cup in 1996. Wendel Clark moves on to the New York Islanders in 95-96. 58 games played with the Islanders, 24 goals, 19 assists, 43 points, and 60 penalty minutes. But then they make a trade. So Wendel Clark gets traded again. March 13th, he is traded back to Toronto with Matthew Schneider, DJ Smith, in exchange for a 1997 first, which became Roberto Luongo. So that trade doesn't age particularly great for Toronto. Sean Haggerty, Darby Hendrickson, and Kenny Johnson going the other way as well. So overall, it's a trade that it brings back the fan favorite in Wendel Clark. And Wendel Clark absolutely energized by being back in Toronto. 13 games, 8 goals, 7 assists, 15 points, 16 penalty minutes, and in 6 playoff games, 2 goals, 2 assists. But if they could have held on to that Luongo pick, right? So, yeah, 96-97, plays 65 games, 30 goals, 19 assists, 49 points. So he's back to 30-goal form, although he still had 32 goals the year before. 75 penalty minutes that year. 97-98, the offense drops off in Toronto. 47 games, 12 goals, 7 assists, 19 points, and 80 penalty minutes added to that. And then he leaves Toronto. So he leaves Toronto a second time. July 31st, he signs as an unrestricted free agent with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay going through a bit of a rebuild at this point. 65 games played. He actually records 28 goals, 14 assists, 42 points. Plays very, very well in Tampa. So, again, for Toronto, it's one of those, hey, so look at what Wendel's doing somewhere else. 35 penalty minutes in Tampa. So his game does get gentler as he gets older, which does happen with a lot of veterans. And then he's traded March 23rd, trade deadline time. He goes to the Detroit Red Wings. This is the team that won the Cup in 97 and 98, and they want to win it again in 99. Well, he's traded with a 1999 sixth-round pick in exchange for a 1999 second-round pick and goaltender Kevin Hodson. In Detroit, 12 games played, 4 goals, 2 assists, 6 points, just the 2 penalty minutes. He plays 10 playoff games for Detroit that year, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. Now, that year, he also did appear in the All-Star Game. The All-Star Game at this point has veterans that get added to it. I remember Mark Messier being added as a Canuck at one point. That didn't last that long. I got the sentiment behind it, putting a veteran in there who wouldn't get in there on their own, but it did not go very well. But anyways, he does not get that Stanley Cup ring in Detroit. So on August 2nd, 1999, he is signed as an unrestricted free agent by the Chicago Blackhawks. It doesn't work out well with the Blackhawks. He's benched 13 games, just 2 goals for him there, 13 penalty minutes. And on January 14th, they release him. They release him so Toronto can get him back. Toronto signs him on January 14th as an unrestricted free agent because he's released from his contract by the Chicago Blackhawks. In 20 games after the return, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points, 21 penalty minutes. He upped his game in the playoffs again, 6 games, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points. And so for Wendel Clark, he retires on June 29th of 2000 as a Toronto Maple Leaf. Ends up playing 793 games in his career, a majority of that, of course, in Toronto. 330 goals, 234 assists, 564 points, 1,690 penalty minutes. In 95 playoff games, 37 goals, 32 assists, 69 points. So he missed a lot of games with injury. The kind of hockey that he played made some sense. He played tough guy hockey. Got a lot of penalty minutes. But again, beloved within Toronto fans, by Toronto media. It was pretty blanket, like 100%. I can't remember people ever criticizing Wendel Clark. Even if he wasn't necessarily scoring well, he was Wendel Clark. You just didn't criticize him. But there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.